Welcome to my Python programming lesson made by me, Manoj. This is our table of contents. First, we'll start out with a quick introduction about me, and then we'll move on to number two, why I learned Python. Number three, how to set up Python. Number four, the basics to Python. Number five, the intermediate version of Python. And then number six, we'll take a quick break and make some mini projects. Number seven, advanced version of Python. And then number eight, which will be our final project and some next steps, which I'll just like yap about. Yeah. And then we'll end with number nine, the outro. Number one, the introduction. Hi, I'm Manoj Pamnikantam. I'm 15 years old. I made this presentation to help people learn Python, which is the most beginner friendly and powerful programming language today, whether it be for data science, for AI, machine learning. It can do almost anything. And whether you're totally new to coding or you just want like a quick refresher, this guide will make it simple, fun, and very useful. Okay, let's get started. But first, a quick quote. Any fool can write code that a computer can understand. Good programmers write code that humans can understand. Said by Martin Fowler. Now, number two. Why learn Python? Python is the best language to start coding. It's clean, easy to read, and insanely powerful. From like, as I've said before, AI to websites to games to machine learning to data science, Python can do it all. Even tech giants like Google and Netflix rely so heavily on it. So whether you're like curious about coding or serious, Python is the perfect first step. Number three, setting up Python. Setting up Python is pretty easy. But if you don't want to download any Python, like anything on your computer, you can just use replit.com. And for replit.com, it's pretty good until we start going into advanced Python, which will need like way more stuff. So in my opinion, if you're just doing very beginner slash basic Python coding, replit.com is perfect because it's just online. You don't have to download anything. But the second it starts becoming more advanced, yeah, Replit doesn't cut it. But if you're fine with downloading Python on your computer, all you have to do is you have to go to python.org, download the latest version of Python for your OS, whether it be Linux, uh, Mac OS, Windows. Then step two, you run the installer and make sure to check the box that says add Python to path. This will basically let any coding software like know how to access Python. And then you can open any code editor, whether it be VS Code, PyCharm, or Cursor.ai, anything. And whenever you and inside the coding IDE, there's typically extensions called Python. Download that too, just in case, like for some reason, downloading this Python doesn't work for some reason. You might be asking which one's the best IDE to code. In my opinion, I would say the best one is VS Code. Because the thing with VS Code is it's just like so much more cleaner, so much more simpler than like almost any other IDEs, except Replit. But like I said before, Replit is like very beginner and I don't recommend using it. So VS Code is a great starter one. Like when you start getting more advanced and want to do like really huge projects, I would recommend like turning like to PyCharm, but only if you have like the premium version of it. Like if you're a high schooler or a college student, you can get it for free. Like if you sign up via GitHub Education, which I totally recommend signing up for, by the way, because you get free GitHub Copilot, which is like an AI, and for that you get unlimited ChatGPT questions, and like you have like some tokens for like uh Claude, uh like the latest version of Claude, and like the best versions of ChatGPT and stuff. So I totally recommend getting GitHub Education. You can get so much more stuff too with that. You can get Codex, which is like this new website that helps you like learn different coding languages and stuff. You also get PyCharm Pro, which was the one I was talking about before. The problem with PyCharm, in my opinion, is just such a pain to like download and everything with that. So I just stick with VS Code. There is also a thing called Cursor AI. It is really good at, like when it comes to like AI integration and everything. The problem is it's like $20 per month and there's an education thing, but it's only for like college, university students. And I'm in high school, so I can't get that. So I do not recommend using Cursor unless like you're in a job or like you're already like if you're already in a job, you're getting like money per month, or you're a like college student. That's like the only reasons I would use Cursor AI. But other than that, there's no other point. And the thing is, Cursor AI is literally just VS Code, by the way. Like it's literally just made on VS Code. The only problem is like like AI integration is so much more better than GitHub and VS Code. That's like the only difference in my opinion. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty much. Now moving on to number four, the basics to Python. We'll first start out with variables and data types. What are variables and data types? Variables store information like words, numbers, true or false values, like almost anything you can think of. Uh, Then Python itself figures out what type of data based on what you assign it to. Common types are strings, integers, floats, and booleans. Strings are basically just like text. Like everything here is a string in like Python. Integers are whole numbers. Floats are numbers with decimal points in them. And boolean values are just true or false statements. This is an example of all of the types of data. String, name equals to Manoj. Integer, age equals to 15. Height, 5.8. I'm not short. Trust, boolean is student equals to true. And then the print statement, which is pretty basic, all it does is just print everything you've assigned it, like print all the variables. Or you can just print out numbers, strings. We'll talk more about this later. Alright, now moving on to input and output value. Like I've said before, we're moving on to print statements and input statements. Print statement is literally just used to output info onto the screen. You can print literally anything you want, any data type, variables, use anything. And then now the input statement basically lets the user type something in. You typically use input statements for almost every project, especially if you need like the user to type something in for something to work. Everything typed in but using the input statement is a string by default, but you can change the data type. I'll talk more about that later. In my example, you assign the input statement to a variable. Here I just named it name. Right, name equals the input. What is your name? On their screen, it'll just ask what is your name, and they get to type in whatever they want. They can literally name whatever themselves whatever they want. Now, if you wanted to ask what is your age and you wanted the answer to be an integer and not like a string, basically what you do is you type out int and you see this entire input statement, you put that inside the int statement. I'll show you how it looks like. It would look something like this. Integer, parentheses, input, what is your age, and then outside like that. You could change this to whatever you want. Boolean, like what is your height? Not Boolean, I mean float, what is your height? And Boolean, um, is it true value? You can do anything like that, and then they would basically have to say true or false. Yeah. Alright, now moving on to operators. Operators are basically just symbols that perform actions like math and comparisons. For math, the plus sign is for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Now these two are different. The double asterisk sign basically just like raises it to a power. Like if you did two asterisk asterisk three, it would raise two to the power of three up. Like right here, two to the power of three is eight, so we'll do that. And then the percentage sign would basically do if you did two percentage sign three, it would do two divided by three, and whatever the remainder is, it'll show that. Basically, that's it. Comparison, the double equal sign basically just means if it's equal. In Python, you don't use one equal sign, you do two equal signs to like see if something's equal. And then the exclamation mark equal sign basically means if it's not equal to, and then this less than, greater than, less than equal to, greater than equal to. Logical is and, or not. These are pretty self-explanatory. Here's a quick example. Uh, A equals to 10, B equals to 3. Print A plus B, which is 13. Print A percentage B, which is 1, which is the remainder. Comparisons, print A is greater than B. You can also do like C equals to A greater than B, and then just do print C, and it would print out true. And then, yeah, if you did A is like uh exclamation mark equal to 10, which is like not equal to, as I said before, A not equal to 10, it would print false because A and 10 are equal to. And then logical parameters. Yeah, these are basically just it. Alright, now moving on to if else statements. These are extremely useful, in my opinion. In like almost every projects you use this. That's like the thing about basic Python. You use almost everything here, in my opinion. Like in almost every project I've made, I almost use everything here. I can like see myself like sometimes not using input, which is like pretty rare. Like sometimes, maybe. But almost everything else I for sure use. What are if else statements? This is how you make your program think. If a condition is true, your program does something. If it's not, it can do something else using the else statement. And you can use elif for multiple choices. Like, let me show you. If, right, like I showed you before, the integer input statement, how old are you? If age is greater than or equal to 13, print you're a teenager. Else, print you're still a kid. Alright, here you can do something else. You can do if age is greater than or equal to 60, print, damn, you're pretty old. And then underneath here, you can add an elif statement. Then do print is like age is less than 60, but greater than or equal to 13. You can print, uh, um, like, you're not that old, I guess. And then you can do an else statement saying print you're still a kid. That's basically the reason for elif. You can add infinite elif statements. Like you could do elif age is less than 60 but greater than 20. Print you're an adult, and then print and then elif age is less than 20 but greater than or equal to 13. Print you're a teenager, and then else you're still a kid. That's basically how elif statement works. But for elif statements to work, there has to be an if statement. There like has to. Alright, now moving on to loops. What are loops? Loops basically just repeat your code multiple times. You use the for loop, like when you know how many times you want to specifically loop something. A while loop is like you use it to make it repeat as long as the condition is true. Actually, let me an example. For I in range in like 5, print high, comma I. So it would just say print like I 5 times. Basically, this is how it works. And now the while loop, count equals to 0, while count is less than 3, print counting, count. And then you basically just add 1. every single time until it reaches 3. You can also do while 1 equals to equal sign 1, and then it would basically like infinitely loop that. But eventually, if you ever want to like break out the loop, you just write break. I'm pretty sure I go like talk about this later on, but it's just great to know for basic. You can just like write break underneath and it will just break out of the water. Oh, yeah, over here, just type break and then it will just break out of it. Now moving on to functions. What are functions? Functions group code into like reusable blocks. Basically means you can create your own function using the def statement. You know, the print is like a function, the input statement is a function. You can make your own functions by using the def statement. And then you just call the function to run it, just like print input. Right? Here's an example. Def, you always use this, create. And then here, you can, inside the parentheses, you can add whatever like variables you need. And what I mean by that is like you can add infinite variables, by the way. See, here I say print hello name with an exclamation mark. Say, let's say I get the variable name later on in the code, but I still need it, right? So what I do is I just put a variable name, and then later on I say name equals to input. What is your name? And then here I say greet. Here I put like Manoj as a name, but I could just say greet parentheses name, and then it would just say hello Manoj. That's kind of how it works. Now moving on to lists. What are lists? Lists are like a container that holds multiple items, like such as your favorite foods, your favorite vegetables, your favorite cars. You can do that. You can add new items with the dot append function. You can access like them through indexes. But what's weird about Python is that indexes start from 0. Let me show you my code example. Uh, I have a list of my favorite fruits: apples, bananas, mangoes. The list is called fruits. Uh, Now print fruits 0. It would print apple. For some reason in Python, to like access something in indexes in lists, it always starts out with 0. This will be 1, this will be 2. If what like whatever the lists are, the first thing in the list is always 0. And then now if I wanted to add grapes to the list, I would just say fruits.append grape. You can do like a variable name too. Like if on top I said uh fruits fruit equals to input, what is your favorite fruit? And then I could do fruits.append fruit, and that would add whatever the user inputted. Then I'll print fruits, it would print everything in here. You can loop through a list to print every individual one. For You can name this whatever you want. People typically name this like I. For I in fruits, print I. The problem with I is like it gets kind of confusing. You're like, wait, what are I? Like what's I like supposed to mean again? So you can just do for fruit in fruits, and that would like access each individual fruit, and then it would just print them. Now moving on to dictionaries. Dictionaries store key value pairs. It's like there's a label and then there's a key. The label could be like anything, like name, and then the key would be a value, like name, Manoj, age, 15, etc. And like values can be anything. As shown in my example, name is Manoj, age is 15, is student is true. You always add a comma whenever you want to add in like a new thing inside the dictionary. Uh, So here, print me, the dictionary name, and then name. So it would basically go inside the dictionary called me, and then it would look at name. Whatever the value of name is, it would print that. Same for age, same for is student. Like if you said print me is student, it would have print true. And you can always update the value later on. Like if you said age is equal to input what is your age, and then you could change me age equals to ages, like what it did. For dictionaries, you can also uh return like specific values. Like if you wanted to return every single uh key inside this dictionary, you could just do print me dot keys with parentheses, and it would print out Manoj 15 and true. If you did print me dot values parentheses, it would return name, age, and is student. And also, if you did print me dot items, it would return a list of all the pairs in a specific format. You would typically use this for like for loops and like while loops. That's basically it. Now moving on to number five, intermediate Python. First, we'll start out with range and nested loops. What are range functions and nested loops? Range function is basically used for counting in loops like I showed before in a previous example. If you want to count to like 1 through 5, you can just do range 1 comma 6. And you might be like, wait, I wanted to count 1 through 5, not 1 through 6. Yeah, here's the thing with Python. You have to add a value ahead of what your end thing is. Like one will always be one. If you do for I in range of 1 comma 6 print I, it would say print 1, 2, print 3, print 4, print 5, and then when it reaches 6, it won't print it. That's for some reason that's how it kind of works. Nested loops are basically just like a loop inside of a loop. Yeah, it's kind of, you know, basic. And I don't think I've talked about this, but you can add an F right before the quotation marks, and then you do row, curly brackets, your variable name. That's all it does. I'm not gonna lie. It's much easier than adding like the plus and then like going out of the quotation marks and then adding the variable name, then adding another plus and then adding another quotation marks. It feels like too much work. So you can just add F and then curly brackets, the variable name. This would make this would literally save you so much time, in my opinion. Now working with strings. Now here we dive more in depth with strings. Strings in Python are extremely powerful. You can change them with methods like dot upper parentheses. You can slice parts of them using indexes, combine them with other text. You will for sure use strings in every project. I literally can't lie. I'm pretty sure you will use it for every project. Uh, Here, here's a text which says hello world. Right. Print text dot upper, and then it would just print everything here, but in uppercase. And if you had like hello world, but the H were like capitalized and the W too, you could do text dot lower parentheses and it'll put everything like in lowercase. You can also like index it by saying print text 0, you're starting, to your end 5. So like just like with the range loops, it goes all the way up to the fifth index and doesn't count it. So here, the fifth index would be this space, right? But it won't count that inside of its like print statement. Alright, then you can do print your node is str15. Like you can concatenate these two things together. You can also use the F letter here and then just like put Manoj is curly brackets str15. Yeah. Alright, now moving on to list methods and indexing. Lists have many built-in methods. You can just search them up saying like list built-in methods in Python, and there'll be like many functions. But some of the more like important ones are dot sort and dot reverse and like many more. You can also grab the like last item inside of a list using the negative index. Uh, and then lists. The main reason to like use lists are because they're very powerful, and you can like change them and reorder them. like very good for data manipulation. Uh, An example, I have a list named numbers. It goes from 10, 5, 3, 8. The thing with lists with numbers in them, it can sort them from ascending order. If you do numbers dot sort parentheses, print numbers, it'll change this list into like ascending order. 3, 5, 8, and 10. Uh, And, and what the negative index is, it basically just goes from like the last thing inside of an index instead of like the first thing. And now you don't even need to use the zero to like access like the like last thing. You can just do -1 and what are, you can do -2, 2, and that will print out 8, -3, which will print out 5, -4, which will print out 3. Not many people like I would say use this. There are like many use cases where you can use this, but I feel like not many people know about it, so they don't use it as much. It's still pretty good, like to know. It would be handy inside in like the future. And then the last item would be 10. Reverse would basically just reverse and like the order of the lists. Pretty self-explanatory. Uh, Now for the pop function, this is pretty useful. So here inside these parentheses, you basically input an index. If you don't put an index, it would just pop the last item inside the list, which is in this case 3. But you can do pop 0, and and this would pop 10. And then you can assign this to a variable and print that variable, and it'll print out whatever was popped. And now when you print out the actual it'll just show the list without that number because it's just like gone now. Right? Now len is like extremely useful for seeing how much is inside the list, like how many items are inside the list. You can use this for anything. Like if you do len in like a string, like len quotation marks Manoj, it would print out 5 because there's like 5 letters inside it. That's or you can do it for dictionaries. It'll see how many pairs there are and it'll like print out how many pairs there are. That's basically just how it works. Now, moving on to an extremely useful concept, the import statement and like modules. What are modules in Python? Modules are like files with extra code you can use, like extra functions you can use. And to bring them in, you use the import function. There are many built-in ones, including random, math, and datetime. For some of them, inside your terminal, you can like just do pip install in like whatever uh module you need. That's like what you do for like that's how you basically import them inside your code. Here's an example of like importing the random function. You do import random, and then now you can do like many things. Here I use randint, which basically just picks a random number between 1 to 10. That's an integer, and then I'll print it out. There are so many modules that you can install that would help you so much. Instead of you having to like create your own functions for them, they basically just help you like it basically makes your code much cleaner and simpler to use. Now let's take a break. We've learned so much. Now let's do some mini projects. Number one, we'll start out with the number guessing game. In this guessing game, you let Python pick a random number. And like whatever number it picks, you keep guessing it until you get it right. And you might be like asking how we do that. Just like in the previous code example, you use the random.randint function, the while loop, and some if statements. It's short, fun, super satisfying when you win. Now feel free to pause the video right now while you work on this, or like you put in some background music and work on this, because I'm gonna move on to the next, like the answer slide right now. Answer. This is how your code should look like. It's fine if it looks like totally different, but as long as like the concept and like the way the game is played is like the same. Moving on to the second project, a basic calculator. The calculator basically asks the user for two numbers and like an operation. We use if and elif statements to decide what math to do. You can also use float to support decimals. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But it's pretty simple to like add that. Uh, this is simple, clean, and very useful. Feel free to pause the video as I'm going to move on to the answer. Oops, the answer. This is what your code should look like. It's fine if you set operation like multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. Here I kind of just did symbols because that's way more easier to ask for. And I also did float. And like I said before, float is like super easy to add. Instead of integers, you just do float. Then now if operation equals to plus, and like I said before, it's totally fine if it looks completely different to yours, as long as the concepts are pretty similar. To-do list. Now moving on to our final project for for section 6, a to-do list. So basically you just build a basic to-do list which starts out with like an empty list of tasks at the start of your code, and then you use a menu, and then you show a menu using the print statement and a while loop. Option 1 adds a new task. Option 2 shows all the tasks. Option 3 lets the user remove a task by number. Hint, hint, the dot pop function. It's all simple, text-based, and easy to follow. Perfect for practicing loops, lists, and conditionals. Feel free to pause the video. The answer. This seems a bit complicated. I know it seems like pretty complicated. It's totally fine if yours looks so much more simple than this. Right? Like here, you're obviously supposed to use the dot append function. So yeah, that's easy. Your tasks, you just print on the tasks. Right. Now for this part, you might be like kind of confused on what this does. So basically, this is just like error handling. Like if the user makes like a mistake, like see, enter the task number to remove starting from zero, because that's how like it works. So if zero is less than number, but is less than line of tasks, then you can just pop the number and then print task removed. Uh, but if like the user does like remove len hen, but there aren't 11 things inside of the tasks list, then it would just print invalid number. This is basically to make it so that the program doesn't crash. Because if you do like uh let's say negative, no, actually negative five would work. If you do like 100 and there aren't that many tasks, then your whole entire program would just crash and you would have to restart everything. Like not restart the code, just like restart all the options and all the tasks you already added. Because it won't save anything. So that's kind of like the bad part. And then end of choice four, print goodbye, and it will just break out of the while loop. And then again here, else print any while loop. Option try again. That's pretty much it. Yeah. And here's another thing for like users that don't know about like that indexes inside of Python, they won't know they had to start from zero. Like here, I specifically say starting from zero. Like that's kind of annoying for like most people. So what you can do is you can just say enter the task number to remove, and then underneath this you can do num equals to num minus equal to one. So basically, if they want to remove the first thing, they'll just say number one, but the first thing is actually index zero. So it would literally just do number minus one, and then what would that do? It would say num equals to zero, and then it would just cast.pop 0. That's that's basically an easier way for like the user. But yeah, you can also do this too. I'm just saying it would be much more easier to the user if you did the other one. Right, let's move on to number 7, advanced Python. First, we'll start out with reading and writing files. You can use the open function to read or write into text files. I'll talk more later on how these letters actually work and how to use them. But first, I'll just talk about their purpose. The letter R means read, the letter W means write. But be careful because it already overwrites existing stuff that's in the text file. The letter A, however, means append, which basically just adds whatever you're trying to add into the text file. It won't overwrite anything. The letter X, you probably won't use much of this, but it's good to know. X basically means you create a new file. There'll be an error that happens if the file already exists. And the letter B, you can read or write into binary files instead of text files. You might not use this, but in the future, it might be useful if you ever work with binary files. And you'll always use the dot close function to close the file, or use with. Here, I both write and read from a file. First, I use the with function and say with open and whatever the file name is. In this case, it's note.txt. So I say note.txt and W as file, and then you just put whatever variable. You can name this whatever you want. Typically, most people say file, but you can just name whatever you want. It doesn't matter. And then you say file or whatever variable name you put here, dot write. Python is awesome. You would put dot append if you're using A, and I'm not sure about X and B too much. But yeah, file.write, Python is awesome. Or file.append, Python is awesome. That works too. With open, and to read from the file, you write with open your file name. And in this case, you say R as whatever variable name, in this case, file. And you say, you name this variable whatever you want. Here I named content. Content equals to file dot read, right? And then you say print content. That's pretty much it. It'll print out everything inside the text file. And if there's nothing, it'll just print out there. Alright, now moving on to APIs inside Python. APIs give you data from websites. You use request.get to get the data, and you use JSON file slash functions to work with it in Python. The main reason you use APIs is to get real-time data because you don't have that data accessible with you. Like if there's a website that has data that you need for like a project of yours, you could see if that website has an API key. And if they do have an API key, you can just go like create an account, try to get the API like your own API key, and then just use it in your own project. This is an example. Here, Agify doesn't need a API key, so it's fine. But most websites typically tend for you to like use an API key to like access their API, and it's pretty easy. You just go to their website, sign up for, like if they allow using APIs, like you just go to their website, sign up for an API key. Sometimes you have to pay money for each request, like the amount of times you like request to use their API, they might charge you some money, like OpenAI. I'm pretty sure depending on the model, they charge like a couple dollars, couple cents to like hundreds of dollars sometimes. Yeah, but there are many free APIs you can use, but typically they have like a limited amount of like requests you can do per month or something. But yeah, and then you just do data equals the response JSON. And yeah, it'll print out this. And each API like works differently. So you're gonna have to kind of research about the API you're gonna use. But yeah. And then now moving on to database. Uh, how to store data using databases. You can use many different like apps to use this, but the one I find is the best is MySQL, in my opinion. It's so simple, yet it's so powerful to like handle like loads of data. So I prefer to use MySQL, and that's the app that I'm going to teach you how to use in this course. Use MySQL to store data like users, scores, or items, or basically any sorts of data. Databases are just basically data that stays even when your app closes. Cause like, you know how you send an email and then you just like put it into drafts because you're not done with it, but then you close the website and then you open back up. For some reason, the draft is still there, right? So that basically everything you wrote inside the draft goes into a database. And then when you reopen that draft, like all that information goes from the database into your like it, and pops up onto the website. And tables are what's inside of databases. Tables are basically just like spreadsheets. What and why is MySQL? MySQL is a real-world database system used by many websites and apps. Python can easily connect to MySQL using a special library, which you have to install. It's really easy. It's great for storing user data, app settings, and anything big. It's more powerful than SQLite, which is kind of the same as MySQL, but not really, as it's pretty weak and can't store that much data. And you can manipulate or like use data that much with SQLite. And MySQL looks great on your resume and college apps. Setting up MySQL. I'll read this and then I'll show you myself how to download all of this. Step one, you install MySQL Server. You go to the official MySQL website, which will be in the link down below. Click that, and you can download and install MySQL Community Server. And during installation, set your root password. Remember this, because you're going to use this for like every single database you make. You can make many, and typically it's better if you make a different database for each project, but you have to remember your root password, because if you lose it, uh, you're kind of cooked. Alright, number five, note the port number. Default is 3306, but there's like a slight chance that it could be a different number. Just make sure the port number, just remember the. Alright, step two. This is an optional step. You can install MySQL Workbench. It's basically an optional GUI that like helps you see all of your tables. It's like really good visually because you can understand your data, your databases, and everything much more easier and faster. But it's optional because you could do all of this inside the terminal instead. So yeah. Alright, now this is how you download MySQL onto your computer. So the if you click the link down below, it should take you over here, but sometimes it doesn't. So you might end up over here. And if you do, just scroll all the way down until you see MySQL community downloads. Click that, and then here are all the downloads. If you just want the MySQL thing for your like terminal and stuff, just click MySQL community server. If you want it for the workbench, click MySQL workbench. I'm pretty sure the installation process for both of these are like the literal same, except that eventually that it'll just like ask you if you want like if you want to have that app on your desktop and stuff like that, which is pretty easy. You don't need me to show it, but I'll show you how to download the MySQL community server. Right. So if you download the community server, you go over here. It'll have your OS already, but if it doesn't, just click whatever you want. I have a Windows computer, so I'll use Windows. Click this one. I just click no thanks to start my download. If you want, you can do it, but there's actually no point. Alright, and then when you click the download, it'll ask you all types of stuff. For some reason, it isn't letting me share my screen for those. So it's pretty much simple. You just like keep clicking next. You accept all the terms and condition. Eventually, it'll ask you for the root password and stuff. And remember, like I said before, for that, make sure you remember your root password. Uh, Right. Now, how to connect MySQL to Python. Step 3. You run this command inside your terminal in Visual Studio Code or whatever IDE you're using. Pip install MySQL dash connector dash Python. And this basically just lets Python easily communicate with MySQL, easily grab all that data and use it. So it's pretty good. How to set up a database. So you open the MySQL Workbench if you downloaded it, but if you didn't, that's fine. You can just open your terminal and you can run this SQL line. Create database and whatever you want to name your database. Here I just named it school. This will store all your data. How to connect the database to Python. So all you do is write all of this, import MySQL.connector. This is very important. You have to do this or it's just not gonna work out. And then you can name this variable like whatever you want. I just always write it as connection, CONN, and it equals to MySQL.connector.connect, and then your host, which is like always localhost, your user, which is root, and then the user password, which is whatever you named your password before, and then database equals to whatever you named your database. Understanding tables in MySQL. What is a database table? A table is like a spreadsheet with rows and columns. Each row is like a record, like one student or like the year or something like that. And then each column is like a field, like name, grade, etc. Like I'm going to use the school example in this scenario. You define what columns you want and what type of data they hold. This is an example table, like ID is 1, name Raghav, grade 91. ID 2, name Manoj, grade 97. How to create a table in Python. You use the dot cursor function to run SQL. Define each column with the data type, int for integers, so basically just numbers. Bar chart, which is like strings, they're just basically letters, and then etc. And used auto underscore increment, which makes ID count up automatically. Like in this scenario, ID is 1. If I didn't make ID auto increment, then when you created a new person, then it would just be ID1 all over again. But if you add auto increment, then it would keep adding by 1. Like ID1, then ID2, ID3, and so on. And then yeah. Inserting data into a table. How to insert data into a table using Python. You use the percentage %s is like a placeholder for values, and you always run con or whatever you named your variable over here, commit uh function to save changes. Like SQL equals to insert into your database, what are these values? And then if you have nothing right now, you just use percentage S as like a placeholder, and then val over here, like value equals to Anya 91. So cursor.execute SQL and val. So basically all it does is it inserts Anya into name and 91 into grade. And then con.commit to save your changes. And then yeah, reading and updating data. How to read and update the data in MySQL. You can use select asterisk, shows everything inside a table. As shown in my example, cursor.execute, select asterisk from table name, in my case students, for a row, or you can name this whatever you want, but I just said row because they're rows. In cursor.fetch all, parentheses, print row. This prints every single row inside the table. And to update the data, you do cursor.execute update students set grade equals to 100 where name equals to 100. So what this basically does is you can manually update a table to where you want it to meet a certain condition. Like If there's something that meets a certain condition and you want to change that, like change the values, you can just use the update function, which does all this. And then don't forget connection variable.commit to commit all your changes. And now here's every single data type in MySQL. I won't be going over every single one. I might briefly go over some major ones, but not too many because there's a lot. But whenever you're doing a MySQL project, you should like take screenshots of these or just like save these slides, like the next three specific slides, because you're gonna want to need them because you might forget what an integer is, like why you need it, or if you want to save a string, how do I do that? You can just refer back to these screenshots or slides. These are every single data type in MySQL. Integers, big and small, tiny. These are for whole numbers, floats, doubles, decimal numbers. Decimal, this is like if you want for a precise decimal, like if you want it specifically to two decimal points, it'll do that, but it'll like kind of round up to like those two decimal points. Like just round to those two decimal points. Boolean, which we've already covered before, true or false statements. And this is kind of how it works internally. It'll just say tiny int one, tiny zero. So yeah. Or char, type text, all these. And binary files if you ever find yourself working with binary. And then this is actually pretty important in my opinion. Dates and times. Especially if you want to like save somebody's birthday for a project. Like if you're making a banking project and you need to save their birth year, their birth date, you just use this. Date times timestamp. Date time for the like time and date, the date just for the date, the time hours. Yeah. Number five, these are just some more useful types to know. You don't really have to memorize this. You can easily find these anywhere if you just search them up. So, but it's like pretty good to like, take screenshots or at least like try to remember the major ones, such as like dates, these, floats and integers and water. In my opinion, those are like the most important ones. Now moving on to object-oriented programming. What are classes? Classes are a major part of object-oriented programming, or OOP for short. Classes are basically just blueprints for objects. You can create your own type, and you use the underscore underscore init underscore underscore to define a set. I'll explain this inside my code example. First, we have a class named student, and then we have the def underscore underscore init underscore underscore. You always have to have self in every single variable. But here you basically just set up your class. That's all you do here. Self and then name grade. Self dot name equals to name, self dot grade equals to grade. Okay? So basically you're just defining what self dot name equals to and what self dot grade equals to. So over here in the greet function, I use self. This makes my this makes it 10 times more easier because here I just do return hi I'm self dot name, which equals to name over here. And I'm in grade self dot grade. And then here I just name whatever variable I want. Here I'll just call it S1 student one equals to student class name. And then name grade. I'm in 10th grade, so Manoj 10. Print S1 dot grade. And all this will do will just return, hi, I'm Manoj. I'm in grade 10. That's pretty much the basics to object-oriented programming. These are very useful for like super advanced Python. You might not use this at all, like advanced and like intermediate, but if you're going like, I mean, basic and intermediate Python, you won't use this type, like probably at all. But for sure in advanced Python, this is very useful to learn. All right, now let's move on to number eight. After we've learned so much, final project plus next steps. Our final project is a student grade manager. After all the student examples I've used, it was kind of a no surprise that this was going to be the final project I was going to do. Right. So, w- what's supposed to be inside the student grade manager? So, what you have to add is like adding, showing, and updating and deleting student records. It's like a real-time admin system, and this is something that like shows colleges you know how to like build full applications, not just like small exercises. Pause the video, work on it for like a good bit, and if you really want to add it, like if you really want to go above and beyond, in my opinion, you should learn Flask. It's basically a tool that helps you connect front end to back end. What that means is you can make a HTML, CSS, JavaScript, front end design for this specific project, and then all the like logic, background, like adding records, showing records, all the like logic is what Python does, but all the buttons you click and all the user interface, UI, is all HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That honestly would make it look super good on resumes, college applications. That it'll show that you're just like a full stack developer. You can do both front end and back end. But it's fine if you just do the backend, because at least that shows you know like all the logic and how Python truly works. So honestly, in my opinion, just do the backend. But if you really want to make this project your own and like make it go above and beyond, you should add front end. But for that, you have to learn Flask. It's pretty simple. I didn't go over it sadly inside this course. This is the answer slide. It was huge, so I had to kind of break it up to three parts. This is the first part, second part, and third part. This is very basic in my opinion. I just like made this to like show what it should like at the bare minimum look like, but you can totally make this so much bigger and so much better, like in my opinion. So yeah, if you want, pause, look at it. Honestly, you don't truly need the answer key. You should use it if you're like struggling and you like need help understanding how this works. But if you got all these functions to work and everything like that, you're pretty much fine. Uh, Now, what you've learned throughout what you've used inside this project, beginner skills, variables, input, output, if else functions, loops, basic math, lists, and functions. Now, what you use in intermediate skills, module functions, right here, import MySQL. Module menus with loops, organizing logic cleanly. And then now advanced skills, MySQL database connection, SQL commands, and data persistence, which basically just means info saved even after you quit the application, which is kind of the main reason for MySQL. Yeah. And then number nine, the outro. What have we learned throughout this whole course? Python basics, variables, loops, functions, conditionals. I've kind of already went over this a little bit in this one, but APIs, file handling, so much more. Uh, we've built real world useful projects using real world programming logic. What should be your next steps? In my opinion, you should keep building mini projects. If you're a beginner, like intermediate level, like if this is your first time to Python, you should keep building mini projects and stuff. But if you truly want to go into Python and learn more about Python and just want to get so much better at it, become like a really good developer, like a Python developer, you should start creating like huge applications. And if you really want to go into like the data side, like data, like if you really like databases and like manipulating data, you should start learning more about machine learning uh, uh, AI, stuff like that. Those would actually really help your college apps and resumes. Post your projects onto GitHub because trust me, these look pretty good on college portfolios and like resumes. And like I mentioned before, you should try web dev with Flask or Django. I typically use Flask. I'm not sure how Django is. I've really never used it before. But yeah. And honestly, AI is becoming such a big thing and like looks like it can take over coding as a general, like in general. And like most people just don't use it because they feel like it takes like all the fun out of coding. When you're learning how to code, sure, you shouldn't use AI to like do everything for you because it kind of just like ruins the whole purpose of like learning. Well, after you're done learning and like creating real world projects, don't make it do the whole thing, because then at that point, what's the point? But you should use it to help you, because there are many IDEs such as Tray, Cursor AI, and many more IDEs that like implement AI, like GitHub Copilot with Visual Studio Code. There's many AIs that can help you while you're coding. So I'd honestly recommend checking those out. The problem with like Cursor AI and Tray AI and GitHub Copilot is that like you have like with GitHub Copilot you have to pay, but with Tray and Cursor AI, temporarily they give you like a free trial, and it like seems super good, but it's kind of expensive in my opinion. If you truly like this IDE such as like Cursor AI, you should buy it per month. It's like a subscription. It's I'm pretty sure $20 a month. And you get like a 2 week pro free trial. And then connect Python to the real world using APIs. In my opinion, you should make lots of APIs. And you know what a good project would be? Uh, a project that is useful and would help many people, and it also uses like an AI API. The only problem with AI APIs is that most of them you have to like pay money to like request it, especially like OpenAI, as I mentioned before. I recommend using Gemini AI because it's free and that's what I use for like almost everything. Like every single AI API key because it's well free. But if you like want to have a coding AI chatbot, you should use Claude. It's like the best AI in my opinion for coding. And then ChatGPT for ideas. In my opinion, ChatGPT produces like the best ideas, like projects for you. Like if you're like stuck, you're confused, you don't know what project to build, and you're kind of in a like slump, like you just don't know what to do. Honestly, ask a ChatGPT. Ask like what type of project you want to create, and then it would give you like so many good ideas, in my opinion. Like over half of the projects I've created, like ChatGPT helped me like think of the idea for them. Mm, Like I've coded them like by myself with like the occasional help of ChatGPT, but the idea like totally inspired by ChatGPT. And then Gemini is like super good for research because well it's Google and Google has like access to like so many websites. So I'd hope so it's good. It's good for research. So that's basically much. That's basically it. What have you used in this project? This isn't that important. What? Yeah. Have a good day. Like and subscribe if you really like this course. And I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye. Have a great day.